Hi Anti-Society, welcome back to the Anti-Social Planet, and today we are checking out Xian's solo Entrancing, and I'm just gonna put that out there now. Not ready for this, just not. I have an involuntary full body reaction to Xian singing in general, and that's like when it's like one part, like it's her part with lots of the other music and singers and stuff going on with like a full Dreamcatcher song. This is gonna be just her, and it's gonna be us going through the stuff with like her voice and her vocal ability, and then we're gonna like see her in the special clip, and it's gonna be a problem, especially like I don't know what the sound is gonna be, and if it's a ballad, my soul's gonna leave me. That's what's gonna be what happens, because it's gonna be too much being thrown at me all at once. But I really don't know what this sound is gonna be, because we've had so many varying things. Like I think Xian and Gahyun's were kind of similar in that they had this kind of retro, playful, lighthearted feel to them, but then Dami's was like completely different with more of a like pop rock inspired sound. And then I can't pull out what I think Xian's sound is gonna be. Like I know she could do a really good ballad, but maybe she's going more of the rock route. Maybe she's doing something else that I haven't thought of yet. I have no idea. So let's just check out the lyrics first, and of course going into the vocals and the production and stuff like that, and then we'll get into the special clip. First up, lyrics. Let's just see. I'm like stalling a little bit because I really don't know where this is gonna go. But okay, Xian, show us what you've got. Is this a ballad? Ooh, wait, the like synth sound of it, like it kind of swelled in with the very like stripped down. It was just like the keys with like a little bit of a synth mixed in there, and then you had kind of that swelling synth, almost like a magical sound. I don't really know how else to describe it. I'm getting like, I was gonna say fairy tale vibes, but they have like a song called Fairy Tale, which isn't exactly what I'm referencing to. But you know what I mean? Like magic, dreams, like stories that you would hear as when you're a kid that are like fantastical and full of like wonder and stuff like that. That's what I'm kind of getting at this point. I'm not ready if this is gonna be ballad. I wasn't gonna be ready anyway, but like, no. Okay, so she's doing this interesting thing with her voice where she kind of alternates like within a line between this more compressed sound, and then she gets like breathier as the line progresses, so that by the time she gets to the last word of the phrase, it's very breathy, and it kind of, she lets it kind of dissipate at the end. There's gonna be so much rewinding in this. That little like step down melody with the vocal line. I'm gonna be pausing so much. Like, I apologize now, but I need to let my brain function. So if I don't pause, I'm just gonna get overwhelmed. I love that little step down. A movie of dreams. I said like the sound reminded me of a dream, and her talking about that. There's so many things. I love the layered vocals, a little bit that we got there. She's very light at this point, and I feel like I haven't heard a lot of Xian get really light with her vocals, and I think that a lot of that is because most of what I've heard from her is the singles for Dreamcatcher, which of course are more rock inspired, so there's more emotion and power to the songs anyway, so it makes sense to have a stronger more like chest vocal. And even just like with the music, right? Like you have all of this other production that you have to compete with your vocals. So it's really hard to have like a really light, airy sound when you've got like a bunch of drums and guitars and synths and stuff going on with the production. And I heard a little bit of it when we got Rainy Day, where I kind of got to hear everyone in their ballad mode really clearly. Emotion too, I guess, also had it. But I think this is the first time because I'm focused on her voice, that it's really stood out to me with a really breathy tone. And it's really nice, like the way that she's able to like control, like I said, like switch from a more compressed sound to like just really gradually loosening up her vocal cords to get to that breathier place. And it has a lot of emotion in it, like I said, where it kind of peters out, like she just lets the feeling like sit there for a second because it's all like dissipated. And it has this, it makes you listen, right? Like you lean in because you want to hear everything that she's saying. You want to hear all of the notes that she's getting. But then when she got more into this like compressed area where she was tightening up her vocal cords again, you could hear her vibrato coming in, which is also, I think, really great for this more emotion-driven song, because vibrato literally has like a shake in your voice, and she doesn't have a lot of like tension in her voice. Like she doesn't have a lot of cries and things like that that are naturally in the way that she's singing right now. So having the vibrato feels like her voice is breaking, right? So we have these moments of her voice kind of fading out, and then we have this vibrato which has that feeling of like a quavering voice, though it's intentional for music. But if you were speaking and your voice, you know, warbles, it's usually because there's a lot of emotion taking over. So adding those like story elements into the way that she's singing, it's just really bringing a lot of this together. And I'm sure that she'll get to a point where she goes more into like a chest, probably like a mix between like her chest and her head voice, where we get a little bit more of the power that I know her voice has. But it's really nice to see all the dynamics that her voice has. This is like my favorite part about going through the solos, is like not only seeing different styles, but like really getting to see the dynamics of people's voices. That like was like chime sound that came through. Ooh, some strings. The vocal melodies are so interesting, like the choice of notes. Let me know who is writing vocal melodies. It's a little bit different than lyrics. I know people kind of think of vocal melodies and lyrics as being the same thing. They're not necessarily. Lots of people write vocal melodies and then other people fill in lyrics for it, or people write lyrics and then someone writes the vocal melody for it. So it kind of depends on what the writing process is. It's different from song to song, let alone like specific group. But the vocal melody choice is just so interesting to me. I want to know if Xion decided that, if this is her input, or if this is someone on the writing team. Like, I feel like I need to listen to it again to fully wrap my head around some of them, because there's a lot of like stepping patterns. Like it's not super flowy from one note to the other. There's these feeling of like meandering almost, which I feel like fits with the feeling of the song. The story that I'm kind of pulling out of it so far is like being reminiscent and missing. It says like a person, like we have like being in someone's arms and stuff, but that's not necessarily, I feel like that's limiting it. I like to have a more macro level of like what a song means. I like to kind of be open to multiple possibilities, but it's definitely being like reminiscent of like a specific point, right? And it feels like a cluster of memories, right? Like it's not a specific this one time when this specific thing happened. It's like all of these little pieces of memories, and they're like repeated events that are part of how you remember someone, right? Like being in someone's arms or like the smell of a specific person is something that is like a repeated memory. You've had lots of times where you've smelled a specific thing that makes you nostalgic, and that's why it makes you nostalgic. You've smelled it so many times that it reminds you of a specific thing. So all of the memories kind of cluster on top of each other and get mixed up. So having this vocal melody that feels very meandering, I feel like fits with the story of someone kind of wandering through those memories. And it's not like a linear story because they're just kind of wandering between all of these different points that they remember. God, it's just like some interesting choices. Not to interrupt the mending of the course, but that feeling of like when I open my eyes, I'll forget. Like the idea of feeling like you have to hold on to the memory because you don't want it to dissipate from you, but also like dreams, right? We have these moments where like dreams feel very vivid when you're in them, and then when you wake up, you can't quite remember what you dreamed. So I feel like it's fitting with that dream imagery, but I also feel like it's part of that, like I was saying, those memories where you're not quite picking up on like a specific moment. It's like all of these little bits of memories of somebody, and you're kind of trying to hold on to them, and it's almost like you don't quite remember it. Like it's kind of like when you remember a scent, like you smell something, it feels nostalgic, but you can't quite grasp where you've smelled it before. You know, like it's almost like déjà vu. No, again, not a reference to one of their songs, but déjà vu in like the actual sense of something feeling familiar, but it isn't. Like that feeling of trying to grasp onto something that feels like you should know what it is and you can't quite figure it out. And I feel like that's kind of me with this choice of these vocals. Of there's lots of things where she's kind of staying in this very like still like light sounding kind of middle tone for her voice, kind of like her comfortable middle part of her voice, and then she'll flip really quickly into a like breathier, not quite falsetto because she's not going quite high enough for that, but she's really lightening up the sound with breathiness. So there's kind of this flipping motion to the way that she's singing, and then there's other times where she'll switch and she'll do this descending note into this like beautiful like rich chest part where she'll really like dig in to the darker sounding parts of her voice, which is just a beautiful contrast between like the lighter breathy sound and then that like darker tone, and like having those two contrasts of like light and dark within her voice, of trying to hold on to whatever this is and remember things, and still like not it not being like a tangible thing though, and she can't like quite get a hold of it. All of the little instrumentation though. No, wait. Like there's like strings, but there's also something that feels like woodwind, and there's little synth sounds mixed in, and there are all these like little isolated beats with these different instruments. Like it in the way that they've mixed it too, if you have like headphones on, it feels like an environment around you, like it surrounds you, which is really cool. Like again, I was saying it sounds like magical, dreamy kind of fairy tale story, almost like folklore, and then having these sounds that mimic that, but they surround you to create like a kind of sonic environment of that, makes it feel like you're in this kind of fairy tale place. It's almost like there are bells too. Oh, okay. I love the use of these like swelling synths where it just kind of like pushes you forward. Like that's what it feels like. It feels like it's pushing you along. And I feel like that really fits with like the feeling I've had before of like this meandering or like trying to stay in one place but kind of being lost and not quite knowing where you're going. And then there's this push of forward momentum. It's almost like it's inevitable, right? Like you have to move on from the past. You can't live in the past. It's happened. You can never go back. You have to move forward. Time is constantly pushing you forward in time. So it feels like this inevitable push forward from that point. But I love all the imagery of like the mixture of like flowers and blooming, but also burning and fire, and these two things of, you know, kind of delicate beauty that comes with flowers and blooming and stuff. And blooming is like the beginning of a cycle, right? It's spring, it's the beginning of a new life, and then like fire and burning, it's destruction, and it's usually the end, because I think of like not only fire in terms of like destroying something, but also fire is used a lot in like mourning and funerals and like releasing things, right? Like we use fire a lot as a way of moving on from something. I don't quite know all of the traditions for South Korea when it comes to that, but I know in like my background, which is like Western and Celtic heritage, we light candles as a way of guiding spirits and like other kind of spiritual beings. There's also like pyre burials, which is also like fire and stuff like that, and it's a way of like letting go of things, even if it's not necessarily like death itself. It's also like burning whatever it is that you want to releasing memories, releasing, you can kind of ceremoniously burn specific things, like even like pieces of paper with something written on it that you want to let go of. It's that push and pull of like the beginning of something and the end of something. And also I think it pulls for like passion, right? It's like it was painful to burn, but like it was painful because it mattered, right? Like I feel like a lot of the time we kind of get stuck up on the way that something hurt after it's happened, but it only hurts because it mattered to you. So it's that it's that push and pull of like something being beautiful and new and the beginning, and then the after part of it, the mourning, the letting go, the hurt that comes when it isn't there anymore, when you're not in that moment anymore. Kind of faster delivery with the vocals too. It's almost like melodic as opposed to full vocals. I love the strings that are coming through on the left. I love the way that it all fades out. Like not only her vocals getting really breathy, again, that feeling of it fading away with her vocals, but then the way that like the production just fades and there's like a beat of silence before we come back into it. Like it feels like you're holding your breath, waiting to see what'll happen. The imagery too, because we were talking about dreams and like how she said, when I open my eyes, I'll forget. And then we have this, she's talking about like the dawn and her eyes being empty, like literally she opened her eyes and they're empty because the memory is gone with the dawn. And then she's talking about like how the night was long but sorrowful, right? Like that feeling of wanting to stay in the dream, wanting to stay in this place where you can remember that moment, that person, that time, but it's sorrowful, right? Like you can't wallow in something that emotionally affects you. Like eventually you have to move on, but at the same time you kind of like you want to stay there because it feels safer in a lot of ways, because it's what's familiar and it's what you're missing, right? Like you want to go back but you can't, and that's why it's painful, because you'll never get there again. There's so many things of like the choices of how to tell the story, both like production wise and with her vocal delivery. Honestly, she stuck really with a really like light, more subdued vocals. Maybe she'll like at the end go a little bit more into her more like powerful belting mixed part, but honestly I feel like the song doesn't need that. Like it doesn't need a big moment, statement moment with her vocals, because I feel like the vulnerability of her voice is just doing such a good job of telling the story that it almost feels out of place to have something that focuses so pointedly at like vocal talent. I feel like the understated nature of her vocals is what's making the song.
어쩌면 내 작별은 다 알고 있었다고 사무치게 길 밤을.
Her vibrato though. Ooh. There's like a darkness to the choice of the like strings. Ooh, that's really interesting. Like there's this lightness to some of it and this darker feeling to other parts of it. Again, that mixing of dark and light. Ooh, her vocals too. Beautiful little like run upwards though, where she like really dug into like that darker part of her voice and then did that vocal run up into a like lighter place. Beautiful.
긴긴 밤 달빛도 외면한 참 까만 꿈 황홀하구나.
Wow. I'm like, I don't even know. I don't know what I'm feeling right now. Impressed? Entranced? Which I think is like fitting. I feel like my takeaway is like, I don't know if this is a song that I will come back to a lot because it doesn't fit the vibe of like music that I usually listen to regularly. Gosh, was it beautifully put together. You know, like I feel like there's so many different parts that I could pull apart with it, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful piece of music. And I have no idea what the special clip is gonna be like because the other songs I've listened to are like fun, upbeat, so it made sense to kind of have this like fun, playful special clip where there's some dancing and some bright costumes, and I don't know what this is gonna be, but let's go find out. Okay, special clip. I see a darker setting. I really don't know what this is gonna be, but I wonder if there's gonna be like more lyrical dancing, or maybe it won't be any dancing at all. I feel like it happening at, like the special clip being at night fits perfectly with the story. Oh, I love the like the, I don't know, fabric that she has over top that has like almost like the embroidery of the flowers, but it's kind of the see-through layers of it.
긴긴 밤 달빛도 외면한 참 추운 바람 푸른 빛 조금도 허락되지 않은 꿈
Oh,
하나의
little smile. Like nostalgic smile.
서서히 눈을 감아 단 꿈을 꾸네 한순간의 꿈.
Oh no, I got chills with the like having like the blindfold because she's talking about how she doesn't want to like open her eyes and she wants to be stuck in kind of that dream. She doesn't want to be aware of reality and stuff, but I also love the setting of it being more traditional. Again, my understanding of a bunch of South Korean culture is not extensive, so I'm willing to be given information about it, but I'm pretty sure this is the more like traditional like hanbok kind of stuff, at least that Sheehan has on, but it has that feeling of being like I said, you know, I was saying like folklore and older stories and stuff like that. It feels like a story that has been like passed down through generations because of just like the setting, like something that has happened in the past, but it's kind of this timeless story to it. And then the blindfolds coming in, I love it. Let me know if there's like specific imagery that's like specifically a story that is like Korean and that's partly why they're referencing to stuff, because I won't know that. I'm gonna be open about that. Korean folklore is not something that I have any background on, so if there are like specific things that they're referencing, I would love to know about that.
서서히 눈을 감아 단 꿈을 꾸네 한순간의 꿈 잠시 스쳐갈 뿐이라도 내 손에 놓지 말아줘 날 꼭 안던 품의 향기 잘랐어
I like the hairpins too. I wonder if they're specifically referencing something. not to fully interrupt, but I love her acting in this. Like, she has this slight smile, like it's not a full on joyful smile, it's this slight little smile that breaks in of kind of this bittersweet feeling to it, which I think fits the story of the song so well. And we are getting some choreo. Good way of transitioning. Of her, dreaming. Shout out to the background dancers too. Like, they're doing a great job in all of these clips. Ooh, this little cannon. One interesting thing with the direction of this is that it feels oddly isolating. Like, there are all these people that are also like for like the background dancers, but it feels oddly like Xion is by herself and she's kind of picturing these other people being there. I don't know, it feels very much like she's on her own, which feels very part of, maybe it's because I have the narrative in my head, but I feel like it fits that so well. If there'll be these points where it transitions, where she, like before she walked into the shot where there were the other dancers, and then this one where she walked out of the shot with the dancers. So it's almost like she's kind of switching between the reality where she's isolated and then this memory where there's more life to her surroundings and the place that she's thinking of. But now that she's trying to get back there, it's empty, right? Like, it doesn't have the people and the feeling, and the time that she's trying to get back to just is impossible for her to get to. So it's isolating and it feels very, like, I don't know, like closed off in a lot of ways. Just really well put together. See, she's like walking into the shot again. These feelings of isolation and then being around other people. I think part of it too is, like, before we get into it, is the only interaction she's had with the dancers was that one where she was touching the like scarf, whereas before there isn't any interaction, like there isn't any really acknowledgement that they're there, which I think also adds to the isolation of it, because it's not some of the other interactions we've seen in some of the other special clips where there's direct interactions of either dancing with one of the background dancers or like gesturing to them, smiling at them, having this kind of joking, playful feeling to the songs where the dancers feel like part of what's going on, whereas this, she doesn't really have that same interaction. And yeah, it's because it's not like a fun upbeat song, but it does also feel like they're more part of like the environment as opposed to actual people she can interact with, right? Like, if it's a memory, if it's like a dream, they're not tangible, right? So she can't actually interact with them, and the only interaction we have is her with a prop that happens to be held by one of the dancers, but she's not directly interacting with them or even like acknowledging that they're actually there, which is, I think, part of why it feels isolating. I love all of the kind of like wing movements that she seems to have with her arms. And see here, it's like the burst of like more emotion. She's alone. Oh, see, like even there, like she's left with the props and not the dancers, right? Like she's alone at the end with like the remnants of when they used to be there. Some really good like storytelling in this. Again, like for a very like story heavy song, I like getting to see that represented in the special clip. That had a very different feeling from the other songs that I've heard. Not only the solos that I've gone through so far, but also the songs that I've heard from Dreamcatcher at all at this point. Like, yeah, I've heard some of the slower songs that they've done and they have their own storytelling to them, but I don't know, there's something about this song and I can't quite put my finger on what it is. I think maybe it's the mixture of like this lightness and this darkness, this constant switching between it feeling like melancholy and also like nostalgic, like this feeling of it being like both bittersweet, right? Like it's this bittersweet memory of something that was good, but it isn't there anymore. And I don't know, like her saying like a dark dream was one of the lyrics, and I feel like that really fits with what this is. Like a dream, we say, oh, something was a dream, it's supposed to be like a positive thing. It's supposed to be something that only like your imagination coming true, but a dark dream is like, it's not a nightmare, but it's something that is not quite what you thought it was gonna be. You know, like it has this really like unique atmosphere to the song, and I think that that's why I'm just struggling to like sum it up, but like such a well put together piece, like both in terms of like the production and the storytelling in that. The vocal delivery was wonderful. I loved getting to just see a very different perspective on the dynamics of Xian's voice than I've heard up to this point, and like getting to really focus in on what she's doing. I loved the special clip and the way that they were telling the story. I was kind of not sure how they were going to do that, because I know the special clips are more like low budget, simplified, like it's a very like simple way of going through some of the other songs, as opposed to like the big MVs for the singles and stuff like that have a bunch of different elements in them. So I wasn't quite sure how they were going to tell something that seems so like narratively dense in that more simplified way, and they just did a really good job with what they had. Like shout out to the background dancers and them just doing a really good job with the like lyrical style dancing. Also like Xian, obviously she did really well with the choreo too, but the acting, like the subtlety and certain things that she was doing, just really good. Like the smile that I pointed out before, the way she wasn't acknowledging the dancers, and it made her feel very isolated. The kind of floating movements like wings, but also just like flowing, but then kind of falling out of it, which I feel like goes back to that feeling of bittersweet, right? Like I feel like when she was matching the choreo, it was her getting lost in the dream, and then she would kind of come back to reality and she would kind of fall out of the choreo while the rest of the dancers were continuing with it. Just some really interesting choices with it, and I feel like I'm going to keep thinking about it, which is usually a good thing. If it gets stuck in my head, I feel like there's one thing if like a song gets stuck in your head because it's catchy, and it's another when it gets stuck in your head because there's just something about it that sticks with you, like you carry it with you. Even if you don't listen to the song a whole lot, it stays in your head, and I feel like that's what this song is going to do to me, which is not fully what I was expecting. I knew that Xian's vocals were going to stick with me, but I wasn't expecting like the song itself to just be a little bit of a puzzle, and I think that that's why I'm so intrigued. I love just how different the solos have been so far. I love getting to see just all of the spectrum of what this group has. You can click this playlist to go and see my previous reactions, or you can subscribe so that next time I post a Dreamcatcher reaction, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!